Your support keeps these stories alive. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell.
People say you never really know someone until your back is against the wall. I thought I knew my wife, Jenna. We'd been together nearly 10 years, married for 6. I trusted her with everything. My heart, my time, my home. And that home was everything to me. It was the house I'd spent years saving for, the house we finally bought for $350, zero after scraping together every dollar for the down payment. When I walked through the front door the first time, I felt like we'd built something permanent. But then, the cracks started to show. It began small. Nights when Jenna stayed out later than usual. A few unexplained withdrawals from our joint account. Gas money, she said. Groceries, she said. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her, because that's what trust is choosing to believe, even when doubt creeps in. Then I found the casino flyers in her car. That's when my stomach twisted. When I confronted her, she brushed it off. I just went with friends for fun, she said, laughing like I was overreacting. Don't be dramatic. I wanted to believe it was harmless, that it was just an occasional outing, a release. I'd grown up around people who called gambling a hobby. My uncle lost half his pension to poker nights, but we never talked about it. Still, in the back of my mind, I knew how quickly fun could become ruin. Months passed, and the tension built. Jenna's nights out grew longer, the bank account thinner. I tried to set boundaries, but she had excuses for everything. She was stressed. She needed an outlet. I was controlling. The breaking point came on an ordinary Tuesday. I came home from work to find a letter in the mailbox, a notice from our mortgage company. At first, I thought it was routine paperwork, but when I opened it, my heart stopped. Congratulations on successfully refinancing your mortgage. Refinancing? At a higher rate? For a loan amount bigger than the one we had? My hand shook as I scanned the papers. And there it was, my name, my signature, right next to hers. Only problem? I had never signed a damn thing. I stormed inside, waving the papers in her face. What the hell is this? She froze. Her eyes widened for just a moment before she plastered on that fake, calm tone. It's nothing. I needed to cover some things, okay? Some things? You forged my signature, Jenna, on a 350, zero house. Her mask slipped then, and anger poured out. You wouldn't have agreed. You never understand me. I needed help, and you always say no, so I had no choice. No choice? My voice cracked, the rage choking me. You had every choice. You could have come to me. You could have told me the truth. Instead, you stole from me. From us. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, papers spread around me like broken glass, my mind spinning. She had put us in more debt than we could handle. For what? I didn't even need to ask. I already knew. Gambling. I checked our accounts, combed through statements I had ignored before. Thousands gone. Credit cards maxed out. The refinancing wasn't about covering bills. It was about covering her losses. When she finally came downstairs, her face pale in the morning light, I looked at her differently. Not as my wife, not as my partner, but as the person who had betrayed me in the deepest way possible. And in that moment, something hardened in me. I wasn't just angry. I was determined. If she thought she could gamble away our future, sign my name like it meant nothing, and walk away clean, she had another thing coming. Because I wasn't about to lose everything I worked for. I was going to expose her. The morning after I found out, I went to work like a ghost. My body was there, but my mind was back at home, replaying the moment I saw my forged signature. Every time I blinked, I saw it again, those sloppy pen strokes that were supposed to be mine. The betrayal cut deeper than any fight we'd ever had. At lunch, I sat in my car, scrolling through our bank app with trembling fingers. I hadn't been paying close attention before I trusted Jenna to handle groceries, utilities, the little day-to-day expenses. But now, with suspicion burning in my gut, I went through every transaction, and that's when the truth spilled out like poison. Casino charges, poker buy-ins, Online betting sites, some of them small, $20 here, 50 there. Others massive one for nearly $5,000 at a casino across state lines. My chest tightened as I added them up in my head. Tens of thousands. Gone. I drove home early that day, my hands shaking on the wheel. The house looked the same as always, calm and quiet, but it felt different, like a crime scene. Inside, I pulled out a box from the closet where we kept important papers. Or at least, that's what I thought. What I found instead made me sick. Hidden under old tax forms were stacks of casino receipts, player cards with her name on them, ATM slips with withdrawals at insane hours, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m. She hadn't just gone with friends. She was living in those casinos. I spread everything out on the dining room table like evidence for a trial, because that's what it felt like, a trial. And I was both the judge and the betrayed husband trying to piece together the crime. When Jenna walked through the door later, she froze at the sight. Her purse slipped off her shoulder, hitting the floor with a dull thud. "What is this?" she asked, her voice trembling, though she tried to cover it with attitude. "This," I said, pointing at the piles of receipts and statements, "is our life, or what's left of it. Do you have any idea what you've done?" She crossed her arms, her chin lifting like a shield. "Don't talk to me like I'm a child. You don't understand what it's like. I can't just stop. It's not that simple." "It was that simple before you put our house on the line," I shouted, my voice echoing off the walls. "Before you forged my signature and dragged us into a hole we can't climb out of." For a moment, she looked small, like the weight of it all was crushing her. Then she snapped back. "You think you're perfect? You've never made mistakes? At least I was trying to fix things." "Fix things?" I laughed bitterly. "You refinanced our house at a higher rate, Jenna. You didn't fix anything. You lit a match and threw it into our future." Her eyes filled with tears, but I'd stopped feeling sorry for her. I couldn't afford sympathy when our lives were hanging by a thread. That night, I called a lawyer. His name was Greg Thomas, a calm, no-nonsense man who spoke in facts, not emotions. I told him everything: the forged signature, the debts, the casino trail. After a long pause, he said, "If what you're saying is true, you're not just dealing with a gambling problem. You're dealing with fraud. That's a crime." The word crime echoed in my ears. Greg explained my options. I could pursue charges. I could push for divorce. I could even fight to have the refinancing voided if I proved the signature wasn't mine. But all of it came with a cost. Legal battles, courtrooms, more family drama than I wanted to imagine. When I hung up, I sat in silence. Divorce, fraud, words. I never thought would circle my marriage. But as I looked at the pile of receipts, I realized we weren't married anymore. Not really. We were two strangers sharing a house, one of whom had stabbed the other in the back. The next week was chaos. Jenna alternated between begging and raging. One night she was on her knees, sobbing, swearing she'd get help. The next she was screaming that I was ruining her life. But through it all, I kept collecting evidence: bank statements, credit reports, copies of her player cards, even screenshots of texts she'd sent to friends bragging about her lucky streaks. I wasn't just her husband anymore. I was the man preparing to expose her lies to the world if I had to. The final straw came when I got a call from the mortgage company. The rep on the line was polite, but his words made my blood run cold. "Mr. Thompson, just confirming you and your wife authorized a cash-out refinance, correct? The funds were transferred last week." "Cash out?" I repeated, my voice cracking. "Yes, sir. Roughly $75,000 was disbursed to your joint account." $75,000. My knees went weak. I opened the bank app as soon as I hung up. The money was gone, already withdrawn. That night, I confronted her again. She didn't even deny it this time. She just sat on the couch, eyes glassy, voice flat. "I had to. I owed people. You don't get it. They were going to come after me." I stared at her, my heart sinking into the floor. She hadn't just betrayed me. She had dragged us into a danger I couldn't even see yet. That's when I knew this wasn't just about saving money anymore. It was about saving myself. And I wasn't going to back down. After the 75, zero vanished. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't just shocked anymore, I was done. Done being lied to. Done carrying the weight of debts I hadn't created. Done pretending my marriage was salvageable. The next day, I went to the bank in person. I wanted copies of every transaction tied to that refinance. The teller looked nervous, like she wasn't sure if she should hand them over. But when I showed my ID, she complied. Page after page printed from the machine, each one showing withdrawals, cashier's checks, transfers I didn't authorize. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash. One transfer caught my eye, a cashier's check, made out to a man I'd never heard of. $10,000. When I asked the teller, she shrugged. That's the name that was provided. We can't release personal info without a court order. That night, I confronted Jenna again. She was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone, acting like nothing had happened. "Who's Derek Lawson?" I demanded, slamming the paper down in front of her. Her face went pale. "What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. You gave him $10,000. Who is he? A bookie? A loan shark?" Her lips trembled before she spoke. I owed him. Please, you don't understand. If I didn't pay him back, it would have gotten worse." "Worse?" My voice cracked. "You've already refinanced the house. You forged my name. You drained 75 grand in days. How much worse can it get, Jenna?" That was the first time she broke. Really broke. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed. "I can't stop. I thought I could. Every time I lost, I thought the next hand, the next spin would fix it. But it just kept getting bigger, and then I borrowed, and then I owed. I didn't know what else to do." I watched her, a mixture of rage and pity tearing me apart. She wasn't just reckless, she was an addict. But addiction doesn't excuse fraud. It doesn't excuse forging my signature and putting our house, our future, on the line. The next morning, I made my move. I went back to Greg, my lawyer, and laid everything out: the forged documents, the gambling trail, the loan shark payments. He listened, his expression grim. "This isn't just a divorce case anymore," he said flatly. "This is criminal fraud. If you want, we can involve law enforcement. But be prepared, once this goes to court, it's public. Your entire marriage will be on display." I sat there in silence, my heart pounding. Did I want the world to know my wife had gambled us into ruin? Did I want the humiliation of courtrooms, headlines, and whispers from neighbors? But then I thought about my grandfather's words, years ago when I bought the house. "Protect what's yours. Don't ever let someone take it from you." Jenna had already taken too much. If I didn't fight, I'd lose everything. So I gave Greg the green light. Things escalated fast. Within a week, Jenna was served with papers. The look on her face when the process server handed her the envelope was something I'll never forget. Shock, then rage. "How could you do this to me?" she screamed, throwing the papers onto the kitchen counter. I laughed bitterly. "How could I? You forged my name. You gambled away our life. You dragged loan sharks into our marriage. You did this to yourself." Her anger burned like fire. "If you think you'll walk away with that house, you're insane. I'll fight you for it. I'll fight you for every dime." I leaned in, my voice low and cold. "Fight all you want. I've got the receipts. I've got the bank statements. I've got your mess laid out in black and white. You can deny it all you want. But when a judge sees this, your mask won't save you." For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. She just stared at me, her jaw trembling, before storming upstairs and slamming the door. The house felt hollow after that. We barely spoke except for shouting matches. She stayed out more, sometimes not even coming home until morning. Every time the door opened, I wondered if it was her or someone sent to collect what she owed. The tension spread beyond our walls. Family started calling, asking why Jenna was saying I was trying to ruin her life. Friends stopped inviting us over. Neighbors whispered when I walked past. She was spinning her own narrative that I was controlling. Vindictive. Out to destroy her. But I didn't care anymore, because the truth was stronger than her lies. The night before the first hearing, I sat alone at the dining room table with a mountain of evidence in front of me. I touched each paper, each receipt, each forged document, like I was arming myself for battle. And as I stared at my fake signature, my stolen identity, I made myself a promise. Tomorrow, her mask would fall in front of everyone, and the world would finally see her for who she really was. The courthouse was packed the morning our case began. It wasn't just family or a few curious neighbors. There were strangers too, people who had probably seen Jenna at the casino or heard whispers about our crumbling marriage. That's how scandal works. Once the word gambling and fraud gets out, people flock to watch the wreckage. Jenna walked in like she owned the place, dressed in a sleek black dress, hair perfect, makeup hiding the exhaustion that I knew lived underneath. She didn't even glance at me. She wanted to play the victim, and she was ready to sell it to anyone who'd listen. When the judge entered, silence fell. My lawyer, Greg, stood and laid it out as simply as he could. Your Honor, this case is about fraud. My client's wife forged his signature on a refinance loan worth $350,000. She drained $75,000 in cash, and she did it all to cover gambling debts that she tried to hide. The judge's expression hardened at the word forged. That was our anchor. Then it was Jenna's turn. Her lawyer, a smooth-talking man in an expensive suit, painted her as a woman under pressure, someone who made a mistake in the name of protecting her family. She wasn't reckless, he insisted. She was desperate. She was trying to keep their household afloat while her husband refused to understand their financial strain. I wanted to leap up and shout that I was the one who kept us afloat, that I worked 50 hours a week to pay for that house while she was out losing money at poker tables. But Greg put a hand on my arm and whispered, "Wait, let her dig her own hole." The witnesses came next. The bank rep testified that the refinance documents only showed one signature in person, hers. The notary confirmed she had never seen me, never verified my ID. Each testimony chipped away at her defense. Then came the casino records. Greg walked the judge through them line by line, thousands of dollars lost in a single night. Player cards showing her hours inside the casino while she told me she was at dinner with friends. The courtroom murmured as the numbers piled up. Finally, it was my turn. I stood at the witness stand, swore the oath, and felt the weight of every eye on me. "Mr. Thompson," Greg began, "did you ever authorize your wife to refinance your home?" "No," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "I never agreed to it. I never signed those papers. That signature isn't mine." "And did you benefit in any way from the money withdrawn after the refinance?" "Not a cent," I said firmly. By the time I found out, it was gone. Greg handed me a paper. "Can you explain what this is?" I held up the document for the court. "This is the mortgage agreement. This is my name forged in black ink. It's supposed to be me, but it isn't. I would never risk our house for gambling." The courtroom was silent except for the scratching of pens. For the first time, I felt something shift, like the truth was finally louder than the lies. Then Jenna took the stand, and that's when the fireworks began. Her lawyer asked soft questions at first, letting her spin her story. She talked about stress, about fear, about how she just wanted to fix things. She even wiped away a tear at one point, glancing at the jury like she was auditioning for sympathy. But when Greg stood for cross-examination, the mask cracked. "Mrs. Thompson," he began, holding up a receipt, "can you explain this 10-0 cashier's check made out to Derek Lawson?" Her face froze. "He's a friend." "A friend you owed money to?" "No, it wasn't like that." Greg didn't let her finish. He slammed down a stack of papers. "And these?" "Casino withdrawals at 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m. Do you expect this court to believe you were doing that for groceries? For bills?" Her voice rose, shrill now. "I didn't have a choice." Greg's voice was cold as ice. "You had a choice, Mrs. Thompson, and you chose fraud." The judge's gavel banged once. Order. But the damage was done. The jury saw it. The judge saw it. Everyone saw her unravel. When the session ended, I stood to leave, my legs trembling from exhaustion. Jenna finally looked at me then, her eyes red, her face twisted in anger. She mouthed the words, "You'll regret this." I didn't flinch. For the first time in months, I didn't feel fear. I felt strength, because the truth was out, and no amount of tears or lies could put it back in the dark. That night, I drove home to an empty house. The silence was thick, but it was the kind of silence that felt like healing, not hiding. The trial wasn't over yet, but I knew one thing. The mask Jenna wore for years had shattered, and soon there would be nothing left but the verdict. The last day of the trial felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. One way, I would keep my home and my dignity. The other, I'd lose everything, not just the house, but every ounce of trust I'd ever had in love, in marriage, in family. The courtroom was quieter than before. The whispers had faded. People knew this was the end. Jenna walked in looking like a shadow of the woman I'd once married. The confident mask was gone. Her eyes were swollen, her hair messy at the edges, her hands trembling. She had gambled away more than money. She had gambled away her soul. The judge shuffled his papers and began. This court has reviewed the testimony, the evidence, and the financial records presented over the past weeks. The issue at hand is the validity of the mortgage refinance and the allegations of fraud. He adjusted his glasses, his voice steady but sharp. The evidence is overwhelming. The plaintiff's signature was forged. The refinance was conducted under false pretenses. Funds were withdrawn and unaccounted for. This court therefore rules the refinance contract void and recognizes the sole responsibility of Mrs. Jenna Thompson for the debts incurred. The words hit like thunder. Relief washed over me, almost too heavy to carry. But the judge wasn't finished. Furthermore, given the breach of trust and financial deception, this court acknowledges the plaintiff's petition for divorce. The marital home will remain under his name exclusively. Mrs. Thompson will not receive proceeds from the property, as her actions directly endangered its security. Jenna gasped. It wasn't just a gasp, it was the sound of her world collapsing. She looked at me, tears spilling down her face, her lips trembling as if to say something. But nothing came out. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I just sat there, steady, because this wasn't about revenge. It was about survival. When the gavel finally banged, it was like a weight lifting off my chest. The farm boy in me, the man who believed in hard work, in honesty, in protecting what's his, had finally won. As people filed out, Jenna approached me, her face streaked with tears. "You ruined me," she whispered. "You could have saved me, but you chose to destroy me." I looked her in the eye, my voice calm. "No, Jenna. You ruined yourself. I just stopped you from taking me down with you." She turned and walked away, heels clicking down the hallway until they faded into silence. And with every step she took, I felt the chapter of my life with her closing for good. That night, I stood in my house, the house I fought for. The air was still, the walls bare, but it felt like mine again. No lies, no secrets, no forged signatures hanging over my head. I sat on the porch, watching the sun sink low, painting the sky in colors that felt almost like forgiveness. I wasn't naive. I knew scars don't heal overnight. But for the first time, in a long time, I wasn't trapped. I wasn't powerless. I had exposed the truth. I had saved my home. And I had walked away with something she could never touch: my integrity. Because money can be lost, houses can be refinanced, but trust, once it's gone, is gone forever. And that was the lesson Jenna never learned.